Yeah, hey, Kyle, how you doing today?
Good, good.
All right, good. Hey, could you walk us through what y'all had to do yesterday with the wide receiver position and, how you got to be mobile when things like that happen in training camp?
Yeah, you're talking about with signing DJ. Yeah. So that happened to be that workout was already set up. So, DJ was already coming in, but obviously with Darnell, it's part of the deal. Injuries and all those things happen, and we're always ready to, find solutions and, add to the roster anytime we can.
Going back in history a little bit, you picked Drake in 22, I guess. What was the separator there with Wilson, Olave, other guys who you like in the position?
Yeah, well, I think it's more about Drake, and it's always, as we've talked about since that day, his versatility. Obviously, there's different types of sizes and skill sets and all those things, but with Drake, he can be such a focal point in terms of inserting in run game, slot receiver, out wide, play above the rim, all those different things that his competitive nature. He can be a dirty work guy, which obviously as you're building a team, building an offense, it's not always easy. And guys like Drake can make the dirty, pretty easy at times. So that was really it. It was more about Drake than it was anybody else.
You mentioned the dirty work. He is proficient in the run game, I know, which was very important to that staff that he was drafted under. Would your evaluation personally have been the same in a system like this?
Well, it's always, yeah, because, you guys see how much, Zach utilizes that and a lot of the motions that obviously Zach and Raheem coming from the Rams and Sean, and motion play is very important in the offense. And with a guy like Drake as a Z, and you can move him and you can insert him, it just sets up a lot of things. You saw a lot of things that Puka did in the Rams, and very similar in that fashion. So if you don't have a guy that's willing to, that becomes irrelevant almost. Some of the motion, hey, we're not worried about this because they're not sending him in there to do it. Correct. So I think with any, we view Drake, there's players as you're evaluating at any position, you almost view them as 32 teams guys. It doesn't matter what your scheme is, and obviously as you go down the draft board or in free agency, the guys that get paid higher, there's certain scheme fits and all those things. But Drake's one of those guys that it doesn't matter what scheme you're running, you're gonna utilize and find ways to use him.
Are you able to share any details on Darnell? Do you know if he has a chance to be back by the start of the regular season?
Yeah, I'll let Coach and Terry talk to you, but more specifically about injuries and all those things. But our staff, we got tremendous confidence in our performance staff, training staff, doctors, and Darnell the way he is. He'll get back as soon as he can.
What did you guys like about DJ, just to even bring him in before and then end up signing him?
Yeah, I think, anytime a guy like, I think it's, 7 years, 8 years that he's been in the league now. We remember him from college, and you track him through his career and his skill set. He's always had, straight line speed, and he's a bigger guy, and he can stretch the field a little bit. So he's an experienced guy, veteran guy that'll come in the mix and compete for a spot.
Saw a stat that Drake had a really high usage rate out of the slot last year. How does working from the slot, how is that advantageous to a receiver like Drake? Yeah,
I think it's just, it's about matchups. I think what we were talking about earlier about the versatility of certain players. There's certain wideouts that, they're outside guys only, and which is good if you can beat the number one, wide or number one corner that you're covering. But sometimes there's corners that travel with players, but they won't travel inside, and because the nickel position, as we've talked about, there's so many different things that go into being a nickel. So that's a way to utilize your best receiver. Hey, I can move them inside. If you've got a guy outside, you can always find the matchup that's advantageous to you. So that's what we love about him.
Is that why, from a defense perspective, you're looking for guys who do have that versatility so that you can almost kind of like take away that ability for the offense?
Yeah, well, yeah, you're always looking for versatility, yes, that way. Chess pieces, move them around for when those times come because of how many motions there are on offense around the league. But that nickel position, man, I swear it's been the last 10 years. There was a time that DPRs, nickels that, you kind of devalued them a little bit. But, nowadays, as you guys know, it's 11 personnel and there's so much that's put on that inserting in the run game and making calls and you're a communicator. And that's why we're excited about, Billy and, D and, Clark, all those guys that are competing for that spot. But there's a lot that goes into that.
Kind of along those lines, Ben Johnson said at owners' meetings that there's a stat that the team with the higher passing EPA in a given game wins that game 80% of the time. It was shocking for me to hear, but I'm sure that people like you have kind of been well aware of that trend. How has that kind of influenced the way that you think about team building the roster out?
Yeah, well, it's, there's sometimes things have changed in terms of to a degree of that. You're always keeping that in mind, like it's a passing league, all those things. But then you always, on the flip side of that, you watch stats. It's like teams that can run the ball control the game and they win. Or you look at the end of the year statistically, teams that have the best run games. The guy you just mentioned, Ben Johnson, in Detroit, they had a really good run game. So that part's so important to open up the pass game. But I think over the last 10 years, the completion percentages, you've seen them all jump because you're finding different ways to get the ball and get easy completions, get in rhythm and all those things. So it puts more stress on the defense that way to where it's almost the pass is the run because you're getting 3-yard gains or 4-yard gains and keeping chains moving.
Kyle, this is Kyle Pitt's final contract year. I just wanted to know how you guys approaching that.
Yeah, we're excited about Kyle, man. His approach this offseason has been outstanding. Good, he's in a good mind space. He's really attacked the offseason, both in the meetings and on the field when he's on the field. Love his attitude, so we're excited about him and the offense in general. We got a lot of guys coming back, obviously, as you guys know, and excited for the new guys that that will get more of an opportunity. But we're excited for the offense.
Is that something that you guys will wait to see kind of what happens this season to determine what the next step might be?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you take it one step at a time, and with every player.
I'm curious. Collaboration is a word that gets tossed around a lot, and I'm curious, kind of, what does that look like? In reality, or when it's working, and maybe also when it's not, whether it's the draft or free agency or whatever, of coaches, front office, kind of having conversations of what they're looking for, trying to accomplish.
What do you mean? I get what you're saying. Collaboration, like that we communicate with the coaches and work together to pick players, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
So what are you asking?
Like, what does it look like when it's working well? Of the receivers coach says, "Hey, I really like this guy," so you do that, or you say like, "Oh, or whatever it might be."
Yeah.
How does that? What is it?
Well, I think, I think what you're asking, like we've talked a little bit about it before, when it comes to the draft, for instance, there's certain players that are at the top of your boards around the league, I'd say in general, that, like we said earlier, are 32 teams players. So the collaboration it fits your scheme. It fits everybody's scheme. They're that type of player. Then you reach a point, it depends on the draft. Every year it's second round, it could be third round, where now it's very important to have that collaboration with your coaches and what do we do schematically, because we're beyond the 32 players now. Now we have to pick players that fit exactly what our defensive coordinator wants and our offensive coordinator wants, because there's a little bit more warts here, or there's flaws in these players. So we got to find out what they do best and how can we develop the things that they need to work on. So that's where the collaboration, once you reach a certain point, and that changes each given year, depending on the board, or depending on free agency and what it is. So it's huge, in my opinion, that part, because if you pick a player that doesn't fit and it comes in and, well, what do you got? But then you get a lot of what's happened with us is we've had some changes on certain side of the ball, defensive side of the ball, and some of the guys that you picked for this particular scheme might not fit for the next particular scheme. You know what I mean? So you're just finding ways, and that's what I appreciate about Brick is, his ability to find the best in what this guy has, and like, okay, yeah, I had a similar guy, I can utilize him like this, and that's the collaboration, is you're always trying to find how these players fit, best.
You've been here a little bit, and obviously of the past, like, how would you assess what it's like now, this staff? And
yeah, it was this off season was outstanding. I mean, in terms of it's been good since we've been here and working. Our process is involving of everybody, you know what I mean? And, this season or this off season was tremendous in terms of working with Brick and Zach and, finding exactly what we need and the skill sets that we need. And obviously our scouts, do the legwork throughout the fall and our pro scouts do the legwork for the free agency.
How busy is this time of year? Like for you, when you're still looking to add players in case there's an injury or even just adding depth?
Yeah, it's the. I feel like, there's never really because we always want to say like, oh, the off season picks up and that's when it really. Well, it's still during the season. We're evaluating every player that's on every other roster right now, and our guys do a great job. Our pro department of that. So we'll split up the whole league and we'll, every guy. Then we go through it like the potential cuts. Like, we all know who those guys are that are most likely to be cut or potentially cut. So we have to evaluate them throughout watch their college tape if they're rookies, if they potentially could be cut. Obviously, in the preseason comes and the grind of that and our ready list, guys that are in the street now. So we're always going to be doing workouts. So it's a really never ending. There's always people to evaluate, players to evaluate, and get ready and prepared for if something does happen, you're ready to pivot and add somebody.
Is there something you look for at practice during this time, specifically when thinking about the 53-man and those who are kind of on the bubble? There's focused positions that, I think, and you guys know that there's some you could probably right now we could choose who's going to be on 53. We know this. We're keeping 10 here. We're keeping 5 here. They're already solidified. Then there's other positions like, man, who's going to be the 4th guy here? So we're really focused on heightened awareness on those positions, trying to figure out how that's going to work. And then on top of that, is the player here in the building, or is that potentially going to be when it comes cut down? To claim a guy and do it that way. But obviously now we have the practice squad being 16 guys is something that we've utilized the last few years, and it is a tool for you to get some veterans in here and guys that have played and be able to pop them up 3 times. So we'll use everything to try to upgrade or solidify those positions.
You guys added Judon and Simmons in August last year. Could you envision being aggressive potentially, this season as well? Yeah,
I mean, it all just depends on we monitor everything. We, every situation that's out there, potential trades, potential, cuts, and, there's obviously certain names that have gotten cut in recent days, and you're always monitoring, finding out information. So we're on top of all that stuff, and you just, whether it makes sense or not.
Michael Penix, what do you remember about y'all's internal conversations immediately after that workout in Washington?
After the workout?
Yeah.
I mean, the workout, that gets a lot of buzz, huh? I've always said that, yeah.
Every time we ask somebody about Mike, they mention the workout. But I'm interested in sort of after that impression.
Yeah, I think.
What's the flight back?
Yeah, the flight back. I mean, it was a good workout. I'm not saying it wasn't. It was a good workout, but I feel like, that's kind of a final piece to it. You know what I mean? The meeting Mike and what you love about it. You gather all the information and you find out about the kid, and then you meet him and you realize how unbothered he is. You know what I mean? What you love. That part, that cool, calm, and confident type of kid. And so, point being that as you meet him, you kind of feel that, right? And then you go to the workout and you see it live, but we saw him live at the Senior Bowl. So there's different moments in which you can see the live throwing. But I think the workout, because of it wasn't great weather. You know what I mean? Like that's another example of, I think maybe why we talk about that a little bit more is it was not good weather. It was not good conditions. And you guys all see how he spin. That ball comes off his hands, and it does that in the poor weather as well. And just his being around him and how the guys that he was throwing with, how they react around him. You know what I mean? So I think that all those combinations of like, man, we really like this kid, man, like, combined with obviously the work, the tape, and what it said to us and spoke to us during the fall. But I just think that you have those moments of solidifying, and I think for some people in our build, like that was kind of that part,
maybe for the coaches because they hadn't done that work.
Correct,
they were
right.
Sort of
right.
Maybe
they're getting caught up in terms of that. Whereas for us, we've kind of done it all, and it's like, man, you're not. It's not really changing, and you're wired to, you see it all the time. Guys have bad workouts, and it's like you're not going to kill a guy, just because he had a bad day, But it's something that you keep in mind. But it's always good when the last impression is a good one. You know what I mean? And that certainly was the case there, for Mike.
Kyle, who were the lead scouts for you all on Pearson Walker?
Oh man, I mean all of us. But Ryan Doyle's our area scout. Harrison Richards, cross-checker. Tumbo obviously is our director. And then obviously it goes up, from there, and we all, we're part of it.
And we saw Alex Brown.
Shepley Hurd was Walker. You asked about Walker too, right? You said Pearson Walker. And Shepley Hurd was our Southeast scout. Ryan Doyle, area scout for Tennessee. Shepley Hurd, Georgia.
Okay. And we saw a report about Alex Brown joining the staff. Is that an accurate report? And are there any other changes in the scouting operation?
No, we get some scout. Yeah, Alex Brown's going to be our Blesto scout, and then we moved up our old Blesto scout, James McClintock, is going to be an area scout for us, and then obviously we have scouting assistants and a lot of interns and all those things.
What kind of growth have you seen from Raheem Morris in year 1 to year 2 as the head coach?
Yeah, a lot of, obviously I've known Raheem going back to Washington, and I've seen a lot of growth with Raheem just throughout those years. But, his leadership skills is what he has. He's genuine, authentic. He's who he is. He works harder than anybody in the building. And all those things, I think that's what I appreciate the most about him. Year 1, year 2 is just like, I don't feel a difference. It's the same, you appreciate the consistency of first guy in the building, last guy, all those things that he does. And it's the same energy every day with the players. That's what I love about him, respect about him. And it's just his overall knowledge of 3 sides of the ball. You know what I mean? Offense, defense, special teams, comment on anything, has a vision for everything. And obviously through the off season and, the draft process and free agency process, he's so locked in on all those things. So, love where we're at.
How would you say Raheem has kind of evolved over the years and knowing him back then?
Yeah, I think it's just, it's an overall, like there's a maturity. He never changed, you know what I mean? Like he's never changed as a person. But there's just this within the building, you know what I mean? I don't know how it is talking. I'm sure he's probably sounds the same talking here that he did, when he was in Washington, but there's a maturity and a calmness within the building of focus, of intent, and kind of whether it's philosophy talk or vision talk of what we want to do. It's like that's where I feel like that growth has happened for me from Washington as a D coordinator, DB coach, and I knew him. You know what I mean? Like that's what I've been really impressed with him throughout these years.
He was talking the other day about the evolution of the blindside position and how it's not necessarily what it was a couple of years ago. What have you seen from that, and what gives you confidence that Caleb can excel there? Yeah,
I think, from my perspective, we talk about this all the time, and not just recent years, but, because traditionally a left tackle is the more athletic guy in the one-on-one matches and blindside of your quarterback for the most part. But we'd always say like, you evaluate a guy and say, he's probably more of a right tackle. And then you ask yourself, well, what if they put the best rusher on that side? You know what I mean? Like you still gotta block them, So, but I think what he means is the evolution is these offenses, and Zach is really good at it, and all these coaches and coordinators. How do you protect? There's different ways to slow rushes. There's different ways to help your players, not just from extra bodies, but it's action, it's motions, it's all these things to help some of those things, the rushes, and to where you're always looking for blindside, protectors. But I don't think the emphasis of, traditional way of looking at it is the same anymore, because there's other ways that you can help in certain areas if you have to. You know what I mean? If that answers your question.
Yeah. And what about Caleb? What gives you confidence?
Oh, love Caleb, man. He looks really good too, by the way. I mean, he does every offseason. He works really hard, but love Caleb, love where he's at. He's really consistent. That whole all-line group as a whole
has been tremendous, you know, and obviously it you know, it hurts losing Dahlman. But Nuzo, we've got great confidence in Ryan, and as you guys know, he played last year and played at a high clip. So that whole group we're excited about.